Interestingly, we haven't seen the indictments yet. There's been some time lag. I suppose it will take some time to go through all the forensic, evidence.
We've all seen the headlines, the courtroom sketches, the viral clips of handcuffs and mugshots, Diddy's empire crumbling under the weight of federal charges, civil lawsuits, and a public reckoning that's reshaping hip-hop's legacy. But what we're learning now isn't just about the past. It's about a pattern that never stopped. And at the center of it, a name that wasn't supposed to be part of this story. At least, not like this. Jay-Z. The man who built an empire on discipline, who turned, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman," into a blueprint, is now tangled in whispers so loud they're drowning out the music. Insiders are talking. 50 Cent is leaking. And if the FBI starts connecting dots, we might be watching the dominoes fall all over again.
I'll just tell you, if it was me, I would be more than a little upset. I was more than a little upset when the client didn't know and I was being recorded. I mean, there was a while there where I was meeting clients under bridges, freeway bridges, because I was PTSD over it. So I think as a lawyer, it is one of the most inviolate oaths that you take to protect the client.
Let's start with the parties, not the ones from the 90s or early 2000s, the ones happening right now. While Diddy sits in a Brooklyn detention cell awaiting his May 2025 trial on racketeering and trafficking charges, sources with ties to the industry's inner circle claim Jay-Z has been hosting his own exclusive gatherings. No white dress code this time, no Instagram-friendly guest lists, but the same air of secrecy, the same whispers about what goes on behind closed doors. These aren't just rumors from random Twitter accounts, they're coming from people who've worked security, who've been in the rooms, who say the energy is eerily familiar. One former associate, who spoke on condition of anonymity, put it bluntly, "The only thing that changed is who's throwing them." And if that's true, it raises a question no one's asking out loud yet. Did Jay-Z learn from Diddy's playbook, or was he always part of the same system? Then there's the video, or rather, the rumor of a video. 50 Cent, never one to sit on the sidelines, dropped a cryptic post last week. A deepfake clip of Jay-Z superimposed into a viral moment, captioned with a smirk and a date, December 2nd. The same day, his Diddy documentary, Sean Combs, The Reckoning, hit Netflix. But insiders say this isn't just trolling. Multiple sources close to 50's camp claim he's in possession of real footage from one of Jay-Z's recent private events. Something so damning it's being used as leverage. Not for money, not for clout, for silence. Or worse, for control. We don't know what's on it.
Diddy really screwed up, and I'm not referring to his criminal trial, which has him sitting in prison right now, but it has to do with something that happened right before he got arrested. If you've seen the Netflix documentary about Diddy, The Reckoning, which 50 Cent produced, there's some footage there that had never been seen before. This is a photographer that Diddy hired to follow him around and
We don't know if it's authentic, but we do know this. 50 Cent doesn't bluff when the stakes are this high. And if the FBI's still digging into Diddy's network, a single leaked clip could turn this from a scandal into a full-blown investigation. Now, let's talk about the lawsuit. The one filed in December 2024, accusing both Diddy and Jay-Z of involvement in an incident from 2000. The accuser, identified only as Jane Doe, described being taken to a post-VMA after-party where, she claims, both men were present during an assault. The case was dropped, the accuser vanished from public view, but the damage was done. Jay-Z's team called it foolish, a cruel attempt at extortion. His statement was defiant, even personal. We don't play these types of games. We have very strict codes and honor. But here's the problem. Codes don't stop lawsuits.
I mean, let's just be real for a second. There are a lot of lawyers who call this legal extortion, and that this is the way the legal system works, which is you threaten somebody with reputational harm. And in this case, it's interesting that Jay-Z, who's very wealthy, said it would be financial ruin.
And they don't erase the fact that just months later, Diddy was indicted on federal charges tied to decades of alleged misconduct. If the patterns are real, if the connections run deeper than anyone's admitted, Jay-Z's name isn't just in the footnotes anymore. It's in the crosshairs. And then there's the money. Because this was never just about parties or personal behavior. It was about power. Diddy's downfall didn't start with a single accusation. It started when the financial dominoes began to fall. Sponsors bailed, partners distanced themselves. The same brands that once lined up to associate with his luxury image suddenly wanted nothing to do with him. Jay-Z, meanwhile, has spent years cultivating an untouchable reputation. Tidal, the NFL deals, the billion-dollar art collections. But what happens if the public starts seeing him through the same lens?
Tick-tock, tick-tock, the clock is ticking on Diddy, because on Friday he finds out what his sentence is going to be, but today he found out what prosecutors would like that sentence to be, and it is vastly different from what his attorneys have suggested to the judge. Prosecutors want him to do 11 years, just over 11.
What happens if the FBI, already deep into Diddy's operations, starts asking questions about overlapping circles, shared associates, or those private gatherings no one's supposed to talk about? We've seen how fast fortunes reverse. We've seen how quickly alleged becomes indicted. But here's where it gets even messier. 50 Cent isn't just dropping hints, he's actively weaponizing them. His Netflix documentary didn't just expose Diddy, it laid out a roadmap of how these systems work. And in the weeks since its release, he's been teasing Jay-Z's involvement like a chess player setting up his next move. First, it was the Super Bowl joke. Are we still having the Super Bowl? A dig at Jay-Z's Rock Nation ties to the event. Then came the deleted AI clip, the social media jabs, the not-so-subtle suggestions that Jay-Z's silence speaks volumes. And now, the blackmail allegations. Sources within the music industry say 50's been reaching out to former Bad Boy affiliates, offering protection or exposure, depending on who's willing to talk.
So that's just competitive energy,
Competitiveness.
You know?
All right, so you and Diddy, you and Puff cool?
No, I don't really rock with him
okay,
like that.
damn, all right. I didn't know what that meant.
Okay,
All right, okay.
It's a high-risk game, but if there's one thing we know about 50 Cent, it's that he doesn't play unless he's holding the better hand. And let's not forget the timeline. Diddy's arrest in September 2024 wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Prosecutors have hinted at superseding indictments, at more charges coming. They've got witnesses, they've got documents, they've got years of financial records and NDAS that might not hold up under scrutiny. If Jay-Z's name surfaces in any of that, even tangentially, the fallout won't just be legal, it'll be cultural. Because unlike Diddy, Jay-Z isn't just a mogul, he's a symbol.
It's probably leaning towards guilt. Now, on the racketeering, I agree with you that the predicate acts may be found, but that's not all they need. There's an ultimate question. The first question on the jury verdict form is, do you find him guilty or not guilty of racketeering? Before you even get to the predicate acts, which you only get to if you find guilt, they could just be hung up on that question and say, this guy's not Tony Soprano. I am not convinced that I even want to find guilt.
The man who went from Brooklyn to the boardroom, who turned "I got 99 problems" into a Harvard Business School case study. If that image cracks, the entire industry shakes with it. Meanwhile, the parties continue, not in the open, not with the same fanfare, but in private spaces where the rules don't apply. Where the guest lists are vetted, the phones are checked at the door, and the stories that leak out are just vague enough to keep the myths alive. We've heard the rumors about rituals, about influence, about a network that doesn't just survive scandals but thrives on them. And if Jay-Z's still part of that world, if he's still hosting those gatherings while his former ally rots in a cell, then the question isn't just about what he knew, it's about what he's still doing. Because here's the thing about patterns. They don't stop unless someone forces them to. Diddy's in custody, but the machine he built didn't vanish with him. And if Jay-Z's still pulling the levers, if 50 Cent's sitting on evidence that could blow the whole thing open, then we're not just watching the aftermath of one man's downfall, we're watching the prelude to another.
There is a partial verdict in the Diddy case after 2 days. The jury has reached unanimous decisions on 4 of the 5 counts.
The problem is that 5th count means that we don't get to find out what the verdicts are on the other 4 because they are hung up on...
The only difference this time? The stakes aren't just about one career, they're about an entire legacy, and the people who've spent decades making sure the truth stayed buried. Now, add in the FBI's track record. They don't just go after one target when they've got a conspiracy case. They follow the threads, they flip witnesses, they dig until they find every name connected to the operation. And if Jay-Z's name is in those files, if there's even a hint of overlap between his world and Diddy's, then the next raid might not be in Miami or LA. It might be a lot closer to home. Because the one thing we've learned from Diddy's case is that no amount of money, no team of lawyers, no carefully crafted public image can outrun a federal investigation once it gains momentum. And 50 Cent? He's not just watching from the sidelines. He's making sure the world knows he's got the receipts. The question is, what's he waiting for? A bigger payday? A bigger scandal? Or is he just biding his time, letting the pressure build until the only move left is to pull the trigger? Because if there's one rule in this game, it's that secrets don't stay secrets forever. And right now, the clock's ticking. The parties are still happening. The videos are still out there. And the FBI? They're still asking questions. So let's not pretend this is over.
U.S. attorney, what you want you want the best attorneys you can have in there. And it really, I know you want to, like we said, appearances matter, but you want to win this case, and you need, like you said, it's harder.
Let's not act like Jay-Z's name being in the mix is just a footnote. Because if the past year has taught us anything, it's that the moment you think the story's reached its peak, that's when the real explosion happens. And this time, the blast radius might be a lot wider than anyone's prepared for. And if we're talking about consequences, let's start with the money, because that's where the real panic begins. Jay-Z's empire isn't just built on hit records, it's a web of investments, partnerships, and high-stakes deals that could unravel fast if the wrong questions start getting asked. Rock Nation, his entertainment juggernaut, has ties to everyone from the NFL to global brands like Pepsi and Chase. Tidal, the streaming service he once positioned as an artist-friendly revolution, has already faced scrutiny over financial transparency.
So maybe the judge is going to give him more than time served.
But we should say that the maximum he could get is 20 years.
And that's what I want to get into for a minute, because this is some racist you-know-what, this Mann Act.
Now imagine if federal investigators, or worse, corporate auditors, start digging into where those funds flowed, who benefited, and whether any of it crossed paths with Diddy's now toxic network. We're not just talking about bad PR here. We're talking about contracts with morality clauses, sponsors who can walk away overnight, and a stock portfolio that includes everything from sparkling beverage to real estate. One whiff of legal trouble and those dollars don't just disappear, they flee. And unlike Diddy, who could weather storms with sheer force of personality, Jay-Z's power comes from being the safe bet, the guy who turned street cred into boardroom respect. If that reputation cracks, the financial dominoes don't just fall, they shatter. Then there's the matter of the NDAS. We've all heard the stories, how Diddy's world ran on silence, how payments and legal threats kept allegations buried for years. But here's the thing, Jay-Z's operation wasn't built differently. It was built smarter. Former employees at Roc Nation have whispered for years about the ironclad agreements signed by everyone from interns to A-list clients.
So, a lot of things in Hollywood are ritualistic for sure. And if you pay close attention to it, you can see it. When you see somebody holding up this like this, with the two fingers close like this, that's the hand sign of the Baphomet. You know, they do safe Luciferianism.
One music industry lawyer who's worked with both men put it this way: Diddy's contracts were about control, Jay's were about erasure. Meaning, if something went wrong, it didn't just stay quiet, it vanished. No records, no paper trail, no witnesses willing to talk. But here's the problem with that strategy. When the FBI comes knocking, NDAS don't hold up in court. And if even one person flips, one former assistant, one disgruntled artist, one accountant with a conscience, the whole system could collapse. Because the one thing we've learned from Diddy's downfall is that money can buy silence, but it can't buy loyalty when the alternative is prison time. And let's not forget the overlaps, the projects, the collaborations, the moments where their worlds blurred in ways that might look very different under a legal microscope. Remember 2007? Screamfest, the hip-hop tour where Diddy and Jay-Z shared a stage, where Diddy famously slapped Jay on the backside in a moment that went viral? Harmless fun at the time. But now, that's the kind of footage prosecutors love. Proof of a relationship, a shared circle, a history that's hard to explain away.
But I respect a response, you know, and again, hindsight, a lot of people don't, you know, people say, well, if I was Jay-Z, I would have done this. But you're not. And I gotta say this, you're not. So you don't know the situation.
Or how about the Hurricane Katrina fundraiser in 2005, where they jointly donated $1 million? A noble gesture, sure. But if investigators start tracing where that money went, or who else was in the room when decisions were made, suddenly, charity looks like opportunity. And then there's the 2020 Black Billionaire Brunch, where Diddy toasted to their tighter bond just months before the first lawsuits against him surfaced. Coincidence? Maybe. But in a federal investigation, coincidences are the first thing they dismantle. Now, let's talk about the industry's dirty little secret. Everyone knew. Not just about Diddy, about the whole machine. The parties where boundaries blurred, the after-hours gatherings where power was the real currency, the unspoken rule that if you wanted in, you played by the rules. And Jay-Z wasn't just in the room, he was hosting rooms.
Out and collect everybody's phone. So now it's just your word against a billionaire. You're gonna lose. Read this right there from that young man.
His 2016 VMA afterparty, the one where Beyonce made her pregnancy announcement, the guest list read like a who's who of the same crowd that partied with Diddy for decades. The same crowd that's now scrambling to distance themselves, deleting old photos, rewriting history. But here's the thing about history. It leaves receipts. And if the FBI starts pulling security footage, text messages, or financial records from those nights, Jay-Z's name isn't just going to come up. It's going to be center stage. Because this isn't just about Jay-Z. It's about the system, the managers, the lawyers, the label execs who turned a blind eye because the money was too good and the access was too sweet. We're talking about people like L.A. Reid, who worked with both men and faced his own misconduct allegations.
Sometimes you receive more with not doing well than you receive. If I threw an excellent pitch.
We wouldn't even bring it up.
Talking about.
Or Jimmy Iovine, who built careers with Diddy and Jay-Z but has stayed eerily quiet since the scandals broke. Or even Beyonce's team, who've spent years cultivating an image of flawless empowerment, only to have her husband's name dragged into a lawsuit that's already been called heinous by their own legal team. Do we really think none of them saw anything? Do we think they didn't benefit from the same culture of silence? The difference now, the public isn't buying the omerta anymore. And neither are the feds. And then there's the family angle. Because if there's one thing that makes powerful men really nervous, it's the idea that their loved ones could get caught in the crossfire. Beyonce's brand is built on perfection. Flawless performances, feminist anthems, a carefully curated image of Black excellence.
Weirdo. I don't get no what you got in your head, that neural link. You'll never outthink me. Ever.
But what happens if her husband's name keeps surfacing in depositions? What happens if subpoenas start landing at Parkwood Entertainment, her company? We've already seen how quickly sponsors drop stars when scandals hit. Just ask Diddy's former partners at Ciroc or Revolt. Now imagine the backlash if Beyoncé's next tour is overshadowed by her husband's legal drama. Or if Blue Ivy, now old enough to understand headlines, has to hear whispers in the schoolyard. Jay-Z's statement about having to sit our children down wasn't just PR spin. It was a warning, a signal that he knows the stakes aren't just financial, they're personal. But here's where it gets even messier. The artists, the ones who owe their careers to Jay-Z's machine. Rihanna, who's worked with both Diddy and Jay-Z and has stayed silent. J. Cole, who's called Jay-Z a mentor. Even younger stars like Kendrick Lamar, who performed at the Super Bowl under Roc Nation's banner. What do they know? What have they seen? And more importantly, what are they willing to say if the pressure gets too intense? Because if there's one thing we've learned from the Diddy case, it's that loyalty has a price. And when the alternative is becoming the next Cassie or the next anonymous accuser, everyone starts calculating their options. And let's not pretend the FBI isn't paying attention. They don't just go after one target in cases like this. They go after everyone. They flip witnesses. They follow the money. They look for patterns. And if Jay-Z's name keeps popping up in connection to Diddy's operations, whether it's through old business deals, shared associates, or those infamous parties, they're not going to stop at a civil lawsuit. They're going to dig until they find something. Remember, Diddy's indictment didn't come from one accuser. It came from a pattern, years of allegations, financial records, and insiders who finally cracked. If Jay-Z's name is part of that pattern, even in the background, the next subpoena might not be for Diddy's files. It might be for his. Meanwhile, 50 Cent isn't just sitting on a video. He's sitting on a network. The same sources who fed him footage for The Reckoning are still talking. And if the rumors are true, that he's got more than just one clip, that he's been collecting stories from former Bad Boy employees, from security staff, from people who've worked both sides of the Roc Nation and Bad Boy divide, then we're not just looking at a leak, we're looking at a flood. Because 50 doesn't play the long game for fun. He plays it to win. And if he's willing to burn down Diddy's legacy, why would he hesitate to take Jay-Z with him? Because here's the reality. Jay-Z's power was never just about talent. It was about control. The ability to shape narratives, to bury stories, to make problems disappear. But that kind of control only works when the world lets you have it. And right now, the world's not in the mood to look away. Between the Me Too movement, the reckoning in Hollywood, and the public's growing distrust of untouchable moguls, the rules have changed. The things that used to stay in the shadows, private gatherings, hush money, the quiet deals that kept everyone happy, don't stay hidden anymore. They explode. So let's ask the question no one else is asking. What happens if the FBI finds more? Not just a video, not just a lawsuit, but a paper trail, emails, payments, records that showed Jay-Z wasn't just a bystander but an active participant in the same culture that destroyed Diddy? What happens if the next raid isn't in Miami or LA, but in New York, at the offices of Roc Nation?
I mean, we've talked about the fact that there's sometimes videos or photos or what don't get admitted to a case because they're
overly
prejudicial.
Right. This is getting admitted. Both sides.
It's definitely getting admitted.
Both sides agree. It's going to be admissible. The defense has a hurdle to jump. I will tell you that they vote in the end, and the vote may.
What happens if the next indictment isn't for trafficking or assault, but for obstruction, for knowing about crimes and staying silent? Because that's the thing about federal cases. They don't just punish the guilty, they punish the complicit. And if we're being honest, the most terrifying part of this story isn't what we know, it's what we don't. The names we haven't heard yet, the deals we haven't seen, the people who've stayed quiet until now. Because if there's one rule in scandals like this, it's that the first domino is never the last. Diddy was just the beginning. Jay-Z might be the main event. But the real story? It's about the industry that let this happen. The enablers, the beneficiaries, the ones who partied, profited, and pretended not to see. And if they're finally being forced into the light, then buckle up. Because this isn't just a scandal, it's an extinction-level event. So tell us, do you think Jay-Z's empire can survive this? Or is this the moment the music really stops? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you're following this as closely as we are, and don't go anywhere. Because when the next shoe drops, you'll want to be the first to see it. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and remember, in Hollywood, the cover-up is always worse than the crime. We'll see you in the next one. And trust us, you won't want to miss it.